So it's a rainy day here in New Zealand, and so I wanted to just sit by the fire and do some reading today. I was going to take you to a river nearby, but I think this works a little better for ASMR purposes. Plus I have some really beautiful books to share with you. They're not mine, they're a friend's, and I'm gonna read them with you because I know some of you may be missing my story time on YouTube and Twitch. But anyway, my friend has these books, and they're by Vladimir Megra, and I believe there's a set of 8 books. I have 5 with me right now, and I'm going to read the synopsis of each book to you and show you the front covers because they're just so magical. I haven't read them yet, but I'll choose one today or tonight that I can read with you. So this is book number 3 in this series, my favourite number, and it is called The Space of Love. And they're in a forest, a bit like I was yesterday, and I think the drawing is really magical. The baby there is glowing, and it's the bear and an eagle or a hawk, and yeah, it makes me really excited to read it. So it says, The Space of Love, Book 3 of the Ringing Cedars series by V. Megra. And it's under spirituality, child rearing and nature. Oh, it feels so nice with the fire next to me. I hope you like the sounds of the fire. Full of ecological common sense and profound wisdom, the Ringing Cedars series reveals a genuine spiritual path to a wonder, to a world where love is the primary creative force behind real physical events. It shows how our thoughts and lifestyles affect the destiny of the whole planet and guides us in creating a space for happiness and love for ourselves, our children, and our earth. It's just so perfect. This is like the dream day to have off. It's cold and wet outside. It's warm and tranquil inside. I'm happy to share it with you. This is the 4th book. And it is called Co-Creation. I know that you can't see it all that well, but again, they're in the forest and looks like they're meditating on a plant there, maybe. It's all very mystical and fantasy and beautiful, really. Co-creation paints a dramatic living image of the creation of the universe and humanity's place in this creation, making this primordial mystery relevant to our everyday living today. Deeply metaphysical, yet at the same time down-to-earth practical. This poetic, heartfelt volume helps us uncover answers to the most significant questions about the essence of the universe and the purpose of our existence. It also shows how and why the knowledge of these answers, innate in every human being, has become obscured and forgotten, and points the way towards reclaiming this wisdom in partnership with nature. If I was to write a book and design what it looked like, it'd be pretty close to what this series looks like. Not quite the same, but still, I didn't realise these books had been sitting here all this time in the house, and I was very happy to see them today, so I knew I had to make a video with it. The 5th book, this one's looks pretty cool. Who are we? Looks like a mix of nature and possibly more rural life. That fire's getting pretty hot. It's burning my feet. Oh yeah, you see in the corner there, I almost missed it. More industrial looking. Who Are We describes the author's search for real-life proofs of Anastasia's vision presented in the previous volumes. Anastasia is the first book of the series. We don't have that one, unfortunately. Finding these proofs and taking stock of ongoing global environmental destruction, Vladimir Megra describes the further practical steps for putting Anastasia's vision into practice. Full of beautiful realistic images of a new way of living in cooperation with the earth and each other. This book also highlights the role of children in making us aware of the precariousness of the present situation and in leading the global transition towards a happy, violence-free society. And now for the 6th book. The Book of Kin. Looks like a wise old man in some type of Celtic or maybe Chinese robes. I don't know. Looks cool anyways. A new visit to Anastasia's glade in the Siberian taiga, and conversations with his growing son cause Vladimir Megra to take a new look at education, science, history, family, and nature. Through parables and revelatory dialogues and stories, Anastasia leads the author and the reader on a shocking rediscovery of the pages of humanity's history that have been distorted or kept secret for thousands of years. This knowledge sheds light on the causes of war, oppression, and violence in the modern world, and guides us in preserving the wisdom of our ancestors and passing it over to future generations. I think I'm going to want to read all of these books. They're quite interesting by the sounds of it. Okay, and for the 7th book, this one was the most striking to me, and it's probably going to be the one that I read a chapter of. The Energy of Life. So beautiful. Yeah, it's just magical. Reasserting the power of human thought and its influence on our lives and the destiny of the entire planet. This book brings forth practical understanding of ways to consciously control and build up the power of our creative thought. It sheds further light on the forgotten pages of humanity's history, on religion, on the roots of interracial and interreligious conflict, on ideal nutrition, and shows how a new way of thinking and a lifestyle in true harmony with nature can lead to happiness and resolve personal and societal problems, societal problems. Yeah. So what I'd like you to do is get as comfortable and as cozy as possible. Maybe you want to get a blanket, maybe you're already in bed, which is good. And I just want you to try and let my words relax your whole body and let your imagination take over when I'm reading this book to you. Okay. Are you relaxed? Are you at peace? Are you excited? First chapter is called Thought Which Creates. Man's life. On what or on whom does it depend? Why do some become emperors or regimental commanders, while others are obliged to fend for scraps at garbage dumps? One opinion holds that each person's fate is a predetermined one from birth. That would make man nothing more than an insignificant cog in some mechanized system, and not the highly organized creation of God. According to a different opinion, man is self-sufficient creation, including, without exception, all the diverse energies of the vast universe. But there is in man an energy peculiar to him alone. It is known as the energy of thought. Once man realizes just what kind of energy is in his possession and learns to exploit it to the full, then he will be the ruler of the whole universe. Which of these two mutually exclusive definitions of man is true? Perhaps the following ancient parable, you could call it an anecdote, will help us to arrive at the answer. A man, fed up with his life, ran out into the woods at the edge of town, threw up his hands, clenched his fists, and railed at God. I can't go on with my life. Your earthly household is filled with nothing but injustice and chaos. Some people go gallivanting round town in expensive cars and dine in fine restaurants, while others fend for scraps at dark garbage dumps. Me, for instance, why, I ain't got enough money to buy me a new pair of shoes. If you, God, or just, that is, if you exist at all, then make my lottery ticket hit the jackpot. At that moment, the clouds parted in the heavens. A warm sunbeam caressed the complainant's face, and a calm, clear voice sounded from above. Do not worry, my son. I am prepared to fulfill your request. The man was overjoyed. He walked along the street with a smile on his face, happily peering into shop windows and imagining what kinds of goods his lottery winnings might buy. A year passed. The man won nothing. He concluded God had let him down. Now the man, who by this time was really fed up, went back to the same place in the woods where he had heard God's promise and cried, "You didn't keep your promise to me, God. You let me down. Here I've been waiting for a whole year now. I've been dreaming about the things I'll buy with the money I win. But a whole year's gone by and I ain't got no winnings yet." "Oh, my dear son," came the sad response from the heavens. "You wanted to win a lottery of money in the lottery. A lot of money. So why over the whole year did you not buy a single lottery ticket?" This little parable or anecdote has been making the rounds lately. People tend to laugh at the loser. How come he didn't catch on that for his dream to come true, he first had to buy at least one lottery ticket, they ask. But this chap didn't even take the most obvious first step. It's not the parable itself that's important here, or whether this situation ever actually happened. What is important is how people relate to the chain of events recounted in this story. The fact that people laugh at the unfortunate dimwit tells us they intuitively, perhaps subconsciously, realise that their own future life depends not only on some kind of higher power or divine design, but on themselves too. And now everybody can try and analyse their own life situations. Have they done everything they possibly can on their own to make their dreams come true? I dare say, and not without some justification, that any dream, even one that seems to be unreal and utterly fantastical, will come true if only the individual wanting it to come true takes simple and consistent actions towards his goal. This statement could be illustrated with a whole range of examples. Here is one of them. I think as simple as that story is, it gives us our sense of free will back, and it gives us those opportunities that are right there for us to take. We just have to make the first step. First step is believing that they can happen. And the second step is putting something into action for those events to occur. A bride for an English lord. One day, at a small local market in the city of Vladimir, I happened to witness an incident between a young salesgirl and an inebriated male customer. The girl was selling cigarettes. She was evidently new on the job and hadn't yet boned up very well on her merchandise. She was getting the brand names of the cigarettes mixed up and took a long time to wait on each customer. A small queue had formed, about 3 people. The last person in line, a drunken male, shouted at the salesgirl, "Hey, can't you move a little faster, bird brain?" The girl's cheeks blushed bright red. Several passers-by stopped to stare at the hapless girl. The drunk continued shouting out his unflattering remarks. He wanted to buy 2 packs of primers, but when his turn came, the girl refused to serve him. Flushed with embarrassment and clearly having a hard time holding back her tears, she declared to the customer, "You are being insulting, and I refuse to serve you." At first the man was dumbfounded at this unexpected turn of events. Then he faced the growing crowd of gawkers and launched into an even more insulting tirade. "Will you just look at this stupid jackass? If you got yourself a husband, he'd complain in no uncertain terms if you hopped about the kitchen like a lame hen." "I wouldn't let even my husband insult me like that," the girl replied. "Who do you think you are, anyway? Nothing but a stubborn jackass." The inebriated man went on, shouting even louder and more irritatingly. "She won't let her husband. Maybe you're planning on marrying some English lord." "Maybe a lord, that's my business," replied the girl tersely and turned away. The situation was heating up. Neither side was willing to give in. A sizable crowd of market regulars had gathered to watch things unfold. Onlookers began scoffing at the young salesgirl's declared intention to marry an English lord. Another girl came over from the next stall and stood beside her friend. She just stood there, without saying a word. They stood there silently. 2 girls who looked to be just out of high school. The crowd that had gathered were now talking amongst themselves about the girl's insolent and haughty behaviour. Most of the snide remarks were about the girl's pie-in-the-sky hopes of marrying a lord, along with her overestimation of her attributes and opportunities. The dilemma was solved by a young man, the owner of the market stalls. When he first approached, he demanded in rather severe tones that the girls sell the cigarettes to the customer. However, after hearing her refusal, he quickly hit upon a solution satisfactory to all. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a 50-ruble note and addressed the girl. "Madame, if you would be so kind, and if it is not too much trouble, please sell me 2 packages of primers." "Of course," responded the girl, handing him the cigarettes. The young man in turn passed the cigarettes to the male customer. The conflict was over and the crowd dispersed. The story has a sequel, a quite unexpected one at that. Each time I went by the market thereafter, I couldn't help paying attention to these 2 young salesgirls. They worked just as deftly as their senior fellow workers, but at the same time significantly distinguished themselves from them. They were slender of figure, modestly but neatly dressed, makeup not overdone, and their movements were far more elegant than the others. The girls continued working at the market for almost a year, and then both disappeared at the same time. It was about 6 months later, in summertime, at the same market, that I noticed an elegant young woman walking beside the fruit stalls. She stood out from the crowd by her proud bearing and fashionable expensive attire. This striking young woman was accompanied by a dapper-looking gentleman carrying a basket filled with a variety of appetizing fruits. It dawned on me then that this young woman, who was attracting all sorts of attention from the men around, as well as, no doubt, jealous glances from women, was none other than the friend of the cigarette salesgirl. I went over and explained to the young couple, especially to the lady's concerned companion, the reason for my curiosity. Finally, the woman recognized me. We sat down at a table in an open-air cafe, and Natasha recounted to me the events that had taken place over the past year and a half. Her story went as follows. The day when Katya had that incident with the customer in front of all the regulars, we decided to quit our jobs so people wouldn't laugh at us. You remember how Katya said back then that she was going to marry an English lord, and people laughed at her? We realised they would go on laughing and pointing fingers at us. But we didn't manage to find work anywhere else. You see, we'd just finished high school and didn't make it when we applied to college. Well, alright, I got average marks, but Katya was a real brain. She passed her exams with flying colours, but she still didn't get in. They'd cut back on the number of free college places, and she didn't have the money to pay for her education. Her mum makes a pittance, and there's no dad. So we ended up taking sales jobs at the market, since they wouldn't hire us anywhere else. We began working and swatting to sit the next year's college exams. But a week after the incident at the market, Katya all of a sudden turns to me and says, "I've got to prepare myself to be worthy of being the wife of an English lord. Do you want to train along with me?" I thought she was joking, but she was dead serious. Even back at school, Katya had always been pretty obsessive about whatever she put her mind to. When she went to the library and found the syllabus of seminary for young ladies, which she adapted to modern times, and we started training like crazy according to Katya's syllabus. We did dancing and aerobics. We studied English and English history, along with the rules of etiquette and good manners. We watched political discussions on TV so we could hold conversation with intelligent people. Even while we were at work in our stall, we tried to behave as though we were at high society gathering, so that our manners would acquire a natural feel. We earned money, but didn't spend it on ourselves. We didn't even buy makeup, so we could save. We were saving so we could have fancy outfits custom made, as well as for a trip to England. Katya said, you see, that English lords would never come round a small market like this in Vladimir, which meant we had to go to England. Our chances would be far greater there. So we went to England with a tourist group. The 2 weeks simply flew by. Of course, you understand. There were no English lords to greet us or take us around, and I really had no expectations for myself. I was just doing this to keep Katya company, but she actually had hopes. Once she gets something into her head, that's it. She never stopped looking for every Englishman in the face, searching for her intended. We even went to a dance club a couple times, but nobody asked us to dance, not even one. It was the day of our departure, and we were on our way to the motor coach from our hotel. And Katya still kept looking around, ever hopeful. We stopped right on the hotel steps, when Katya suddenly puts her bag down, looks off to one side and said, "Here he comes." I look, and lo and behold, walking alongside toward us is a young man minding his own business and paying no attention to us. Just as I expected, he came right up to where we were standing, but didn't even glance at Katya, and walked right by. And then all of a sudden, "Katya, Q," blew me away, calls out to him. The young man turns to look at us. Katya goes up to him slowly but confidently and says to him in English, "My name is Katya. I am from Russia. Now I am leaving to go to the airport on a bus with my tour group. I have approached you. I have a feeling that I can make you a very good wife. I do not yet love you, but I shall be able to love you, and you will love me. We shall have good children together, a little boy and a girl. We shall be happy together. And now, if you wish, you can accompany me to say goodbye at the airport." The young man just stood there, staring intently at Katya without saying a word. He was dumbfounded, no doubt from the shock. Then he said he had an important business meeting, wished her bon voyage, and walked off. The whole way to the airport, Katya sat staring out the window. We didn't say a word to each other. Both Katya and I felt awkward in front of all the tourists who saw the scene in front of the hotel. I could literally feel my skin tingling at all those people making fun of Katya and accusing her. But when we arrived at the airport and were getting off the coach, right there was none other than this same young Englishman, greeting Katya with a huge bouquet of flowers in his hand. She put her bag down. No, she simply let it fall to the pavement. She didn't take the bouquet, but buried her head in his chest and began crying. He dropped the bouquet and the flowers scattered all over. I helped the other tourists gather them up. Well, they had just stood there, and the Englishman was stroking Katya's head, and as though there was nobody else around, he kept telling her what a fool he was for almost letting fate slip through his fingers. How if he didn't catch up with her, he would suffer for it his whole life, and kept on thanking Katya for finding him. Meanwhile, as it turned out, the plane's departure was delayed. I shan't tell you how, but I was the one who managed to delay it. Her Englishman turned out to be from a family of British diplomats, and he himself was about to be posted to some embassy. As soon as we got back to Russia, he started ringing up Katya every day. They talked for hours. Katya's now in England and pregnant. I think they really do love each other. And now I believe in love at first sight. When Natasha finished telling me her amazing story, she gave a smile to her companion sitting beside her. I asked whether they had known each other long, and the young man answered, "You see, I was in the same tourist group when the Englishman's flowers got strewn all over. Natasha started picking them up, and I began helping her. Now I carry her fruit basket for her. Who are we compared to English lords? Natasha lovingly placed her hand on her companion's shoulder and said with a smile, "And just who are they compared to you, our Russian men?" Then the happy girl turned to me and said, "Andrea and I got married a month ago, and here we are, come to see my parents." After hearing the story of these girls, a lot of people might think, well, they were just lucky, not a typical situation. But if I dare say it, the situation in this case was absolutely typical and entirely normal. More than that, I would reaffirm that other girls could predict a similar destiny for themselves if they are prepared to follow the pattern set by Katya and Natasha. Of course, there may be certain differences, names, the type of suitor, and the time frame involved. But a similar situation happening with others is already a predetermined fact. Predetermined by whom? By the girls themselves. Their way of thinking and the constant steps they take toward their goal. Think about it. Katya had a dream or a goal to marry an Englishman. What prompted this dream is unimportant. She was probably turned off by the atmosphere of the market, the drunken customers and how rude they were. Or maybe the shameful taunts of the customer in question. In any case, a dream was born. What of it? What young girl doesn't dream of a prince driving a white Mercedes and yet still ends up marrying a typical loser? In the vast majority of cases, their dreams do not come true. I concede that, of course, but the reason they don't come true is simply that their actions, or more precisely, their inaction in respect to their dream, is like the anecdote about the lottery ticket. When someone dreams about winning big at the lottery and even asks God for help, but doesn't take the first elementary step of buying a single ticket, the girls began taking action and a consistent pattern was realized. Dream, thought, action. Try removing just one of these elements from the chain, and the girl's fate would have turned out completely differently. We're up to chapter 3. So we'll save that for next time. I think it's quite cool that they that this book is mixing real life stories. I'm not sure how much fantasy will be in there, but I think this is a really good way to write. And it makes me think about myself and my own goals. I have this long life goal to write a book, and I realise that I don't ever take the first step of just writing. I haven't done for a long time, and I'm basically hindering myself from ever achieving that goal. Find some excuse not to do it, like I'm not good enough, or going to take too long, or I don't have time. Or I'm too lazy to write every day. And then I'll never write a book, I guess, if I think like that. So, perhaps there's something in your life you've always wanted to do. Whatever it is, try and work on that.